Hey everybody, STM Kahuna here with another World of Tanks video. This one is on the Tier 7 Chinese medium, the T-34-1. Over the time I've been playing World of Tanks, I initially started out playing heavy tanks predominantly. That was what kind of drew me into the game. Iconic vehicles like the Tiger and the IS. Vehicles that I'd spent a lot of time kind of reading about, researching, hearing the kind of World War II stories and accounts about. But as my game as I've played tanks longer, my preferred methodology of playing has changed also. I've started to enjoy playing medium tanks a lot more. I like the flexibility offered by them. The combination of speed, agility, firepower, reasonable hit point pools. When compared to heavy vehicles such as the Tiger, which have distinctive roles, it is designed to lead the push or offer the kind of best support to the rest of the team, or the heaviest hit pool and the heaviest armor. There's a lot to be said for smaller, nimbler, more agile, more sneaky vehicles, and the T-34-1 certainly one that falls into that category. And as a result, I kind of class the T-34-1 as a kind of jack of all trades and master of none, with its combination of very light armor but reasonably well armored turret. I mean, 170mm on the front, 120 on the sides, and 60 at the rear. Very well rounded. This tank's a tough nut to crack when it's hull down, when it's on tier 8s. It can give a little bit of trouble to tier 9s, not so much, but you have to adjust the gameplay to suit. Combined with the fact that Chinese tanks historically don't have any gun depression worth speaking of, it limits the vehicle's use on hills. The hull itself, though well sloped, doesn't offer a great deal of protection, and as any good medium tank driver will tell you, you shouldn't rely on the hull armor for any protection whatsoever. It's purely there. If you angle it, you might catch the occasional bounce, but higher tier heavy tanks and high penetration medium tanks and even high penetration light tanks will deplete your hit pool very, very quickly. I mean, this tank is quite nimble. Top speed of 50 kph, hull traverse of 42 degrees per second with a turret traverse of 44. It will keep pace with all but the fastest vehicles in the game. The Comet, for instance, is certainly much more faster, much more agile, but what it loses in that aspect it makes up for with higher alpha damage with 175mm and 250 average damage. Penetration increasing exponentially at about 235 on the APCR. I don't carry any HE rounds in it. I just carry a mix of AP and APCR, generally quite a low amount. With a lot of Chinese tanks, it does have a tendency to suffer fires. I mean, the engine is only a 12% chance of fire rate, but shots into the engine bay through the front have been known to set it on fire. Even an unlucky shot hitting the exposed fuel tanks on the outside can cause it to catch fire, so a fire extinguisher definitely well worth having. My general kit loadout for this type of vehicle is purely designed to make it quite an aggressive medium. A rammer, a laying drive to reduce the atypical long Chinese aiming time, combined with vents to make it that a little bit quicker as well. Now, that being said, you could mix this up. You could certainly recommend putting coated optics on it. While the hatches and things are quite low down, it does have a decent view range for tier 7, 370 meters stock. So we can see here the 100mm gun is one of the reasons I really like this tank. 175 mils of penetration, 250 damage, 235 on the APCR, and 330 potential damage with HE, but with the lower trade-off of the 50mm of penetration, I don't find that reliable enough, even on very, very, very lightly armoured targets, to be worth carrying anything. with a hit pool of 1050 hit points, it can take a few knocks from the hardest hitters in the game. It certainly won't brawl with any vehicle, it's just too lightly armoured for that. However, that being said, where this tank comes into its own is very low profile. As I say, turret's a tough nut to crack and shouldn't be underestimated. And if you keep that turret moving as well, it is going to prove to be awkward for your opponents to get through. Arty do tend to love these vehicles. You know, they are thinly skinned, splash damage will take your tracks, you will most likely suffer module damage, so when you do get involved, if Arty does spot you, movement is of course going to be your best option. However, like I say, I like this tank because it's flexible, it fits many roles. While it certainly will not snipe at long range, you can scout aggressively, you can flank, you can support, and you can one-on-one, because of your speed and mobility, give heavy tanks something to think about. Obviously you have to take those guys one-on-one. Fighting multiple heavy tanks or getting caught out in the open is going to be the end of this tank. Staying concealed, picking your moment to attack, careful measurement of what's happening on the mini-map will do you no harm whatsoever, and this tank will give you the flexibility to be able to do something with it. So that being said, we're going to queue up a little bit of gameplay in a moment or two to show you just a little bit of what this tank can do. It's not a fantastic matchup, it's not a mastery badge by any manner or means, but it does show how this tank can support, can be a nuisance, can relocate on the flank, position itself, fight and hull down, and get a few lucky kind of take a few lucky kind of absorption shots as well. As you can see here with the modules, the engine itself 520 brake horsepower. The tank only weighs 32 tons. It's a decent specific horsepower tonnage. I don't unfortunately have the actual figures to hand, otherwise I would be reading them out. The tracks are reasonable, have a decent amount of health. They seem to stay on reasonably well. I've never had particular trouble with them coming over rough terrain and such. The tank's mobility on all surfaces is overall very, very good. It's just that something about, I seem to do better in tanks that don't excel at any one part. That just maybe suits my playstyle a little bit better. I like the ability to be able to mix it up a little bit, do what's necessary at any particular time. Now, with that being said, the ammunition, as I've said before, 5 APCR for me, with its penetration of 235. Useful when you are coming up against tier 9s. This will get tier 9s on occasion, and as a result, you're probably going to want that for when you absolutely positively have to do damage. Aside from that, most people have been using 175mm 122 Russian guns since tier 6. You should know how to use it. Side shots are definitely a strong point for that type of caliber and that type of penetration. Frontal shots can be a little bit hit or miss against the more heavily armoured, better angled targets. But again, decent fire rate, decent alpha, 0.4 dispersion at 100 meters, not particularly accurate, but the shell will go roughly in the direction that you're aiming at, so combined with a slightly high, well, I find the 2.9 not an accurate description. It does seem to take a lot longer to aim, hence why I have vents and a laying drive on this. I want to try and bring that down as low as possible. Crew do suffer a little bit. I do tend to find that the HE rounds can cause you a great deal of problems. Getting hit by artillery certainly will cause you probably have to use a repair kit. I've lost crew members more than once from consecutive hits. So here we are, we're going to be loading up on Karelia. As you saw from XVM, this was a 37% game, not the best readout we've ever had. I'm platooned up with my long-time cohort Bacchus. He's over there, am I right, in the T-29. Now we've got quite lucky, we have got a tier 7 match. This isn't a bad turn of results, could have been a lot worse. While XVM's certainly not favouring us, we do have, it's a good balance of tanks actually. There's not any kind of real aerial shockers. Probably the biggest worry in the entire side is the Bert and the SU-152, but I'm going to hazard a guess before the match started that the 152 was probably going to go on the western flank. Now my buddy Bacchus decided to push the valley. I thought, got to support your teammates. If anything, if nothing else, if you're platooned up, there's the one thing I can't stand is when you see platoon mates who leave each other alone and don't seem to coordinate. It baffles me. It's hard enough when you're in a game with random people, but when you actually decide to play with someone, I think that was the T-34-1 deciding to track himself. So we've got an early spot, ELC doing some suicide spotting, possibly trying to get himself a scout medal, but they're going to have to win for that. So here we go, we've got the AMX M445, we've got the Chi-Ri, the VK30-02D and M5 Stuart. Ooh. Can't go wrong with taking a Stuart out early on, that always makes my day, but sadly he manages to camel back up. So I see that T-34-85 and ELC AMX could probably use a little support, so I decided, right, got to get up this hill, get myself in a forward enough position. Now I'm interested to see where the M445 and there he is. So he's got a nice shot on me. Let's see if we can pre-aim.
That one bounced.
Okay, kind of bounced off there. Okay, these guys are in a decent position. My buddy back is just kind of exposed, so I'll get one in the M4. Now, being a little greedy here, decide to wait and take a shot on the M5. And, well, he's been hit. There we go. So this kill number 1. We're 3-1. We've got the lead. We've lost the ELC AMX, but the T-34-85 is doing well now. I've got to help my buddy. He's kind of caught out in the moment. He can't push because the other T-34-1. So, position myself up on the rear there.
Critical hit.
That's just unlucky. Catch his tracks. Back is taking a bit of a hell. Get one on the side of the turret in a second. And this AMX M4 is going back to the garage. Now, artillery, the Bert's taking an interest in me. There's a surprise. I can't back up. It's always something reassuring about when a Bert takes a hit on you. So, I'm going to have to hold up this T-34-1. I can't afford to let him flank me. So, get down at the dip. Keep moving. I know Artie's on me. Only giving them my turret. Now, what I'm doing here is trying to take a guess where everybody is. I know Bacchus will come when I call him, but I've got to push now. Take one. Gun depression's a problem. T-34-85's helping me out. Get one in him. Couldn't quite get back, but there he goes. So we now hold the valley. We're 7-5. We've got a good push going on here. Ah, there's the Bert. It'd be nice if we get a shot on him, but I'm going to have to come out of the dip to do that. Now, I have a little bit of a brain freeze here, and not to mention lose the ability to aim altogether. Put that one at the deck. I decided, right, I'll wait, I'll get one on his lower plate here. Fine. Now, what I should have done was drop back into the dip rather than push forward. Got lucky there. Tracks ate that one. The VK's better get back to garage, better be sent back to the garage, and we're all good to go. So we've got to keep moving, got to keep the momentum. It's now 10-5. The guys on the western flank and in the middle ridge have done a cracking job of holding any advance the enemy was putting forward, but we need to push. We're where the firepower is right now. So KV-1S is pushing up in front. We've got the VK30-1P. There's my friend in the Bert. Surprised he didn't draw back a little bit further. There we go. Revenge for the damage done earlier. So we know where the SU-152 is. He last spotted at B4. I'm fairly certain if he's a sensible SU-152 driver, he has probably got the 152mm gun on. I know that's certainly what I'd have on. So the VK is about to have a very bad day. He's now completely surrounded on all sides. I can't quite get a shot on him. And the 1S proving that you can snipe with a 122 at long range. So at which point I decide, right, okay, that M7's no real threat to anybody now. we've got to spot the SU-152. So I'm kind of communicating to my buddy right about now. I'm telling him, it's like, look, you better avenge me. I've only got 395 health left. I'm taking a risk here. So there is that tier 6 and the AMX on the ARL-44. So I know I'm spotted. Right, we've now got eyes on the SU-152. He's not looking at me. Get one on his side. Now, watching the countdown timer, I know how long that 152 takes to aim, so I'll get the shot and move. And just avoid. Now the SU-152 is mine. The AMX, I keep saying that. The RL-44 is gone. And there we go, 37% win rate, and we've pulled 15-5. Not a bad turn of events. So, on to the results. Well, as you saw, 15-5 overall. A couple of kills. Now, managed approximately just over 1900 damage, which is far from phenomenal by any manner of means, but not a bad result. Good enough for second class mastery badge in the tank. Good enough for government work, some might say. Managed to, actually it was 3 kills, so we took out the M5 Stuart, the FE-304, ninja that kill with only 75 hit points left, and took out the SU-152. Damaged the VK-3601H, damaged the fellow T-34-1, and damaged the AMX M445. So, again, one of the many reasons why I like this tank is its flexibility. The gun is usable. I mean, on tier there, as you saw, no problem getting through anybody. Picked my shots, picked my targets, didn't have a single bounce. Aside from some poor aiming coming over the hill with the VK, I don't think we really missed much of a shot either. So that was good enough for 3000 plus XP. Not a bad run. I gotta say, if you haven't pushed up the Chinese medium tanks for whatever reason, if you, like me, initially thought that they're going to be exact carbon copy clones of the Russian counterparts, there is a lot to be said on that ground. The Type 58 is a lesser tank than the T-34-85, I have to say, just because of the gun selection. I had a lot more fun with the T-34-85, but at tier 7, once you start at the T-34 series, the T-34-1, the T-34-2 start to come into their own. It shows a little bit of Chinese development there, which then starts to differentiate itself from the Russian counterparts and from a lot of the other nations in the game as well. You know, the very low slung tanks, very stealthy, poorly armored but good turret armor, and a decent all-round capability. Makes them certainly worthwhile considering. Well, again, I'd like to take time to thank you all for taking your time out to watch this. Please leave a comment in the section below. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Everything little helps. Again, this is SDM Kahuna, signing off. Thanks.